Hi everyone, sorry if it looks like I'm recording from a nuclear submarine or a bunker in the Arctic. I had to record in my car for reasons that are not too interesting. That's why you'll probably hear the hum of an engine motor throughout this video. I wanted to make a point about stupidity. This is an era where intelligence, basic intelligence, is met with distrust. Expertise has to be sold to people. Public relations are especially important today. The result of the era we're in, where there's so much decentralization in terms of opinion and the say profession of knowledge, is we're in a world where I mean, you have to be on stupidity's good side. You just have to. It's chaotic. I don't want to put all the blame on populism or something like that. Populism is a part of what's going on today. I think the technological factors, the decentralization of opinion, is the driving force. But there's so much paranoia over how society operates, and there's paranoia over people who hold abstract knowledge that is not easily attained or seems unintuitive. Throughout the last century, there's been a buildup of an administrative class, a class of expertise that many of the institutions, the educational institutions of the country that most young people are, tasked with navigating, have historically funneled into this kind of pyramid of managerial positions. And the jobs that have been created, the sort of positions for people at all levels of government, especially the federal government, have become quite large, quite bloated. Most of the influential roles have been occupied by people who have held their position or something, within the field for decades, and they hold these roles quite closely. They hold onto them quite guardedly. And we're just in an era where a lot of this stuff is breaking down, and you can point to that as being a good thing. You can point to that as being a bad thing. The point is, it is happening, and it seems like this era of I want to be careful now. I frame this so it doesn't seem like I'm speaking about myself, but I feel like there's a lot of people who want to contribute to society and use their brains, and it just isn't. It's not a clean cut process. You understand? There might be people who study a certain thing at a school, and they try to be quite competent in their field, and they start plotting careers, and they want these precious positions, and it's not the fact that somebody who studies very hard or goes to one of the top schools or something like that should not be shouldn't expect I'd say a special position or something of that matter, because it is typically, if you spend years studying something, you might have something to offer. Be it in the national security space, be it in the corporate space, be it in the media journalistic space, be it in a scientific field, anything that you can think of that is on offer as an educational pipeline. It's not unrealistic for people to study these things and expect that it will work out. And another example would be those who get into software engineering or something like that. And now all of a sudden, unless they're at the very tippy top of their field, they may not have the job or the career that they had planned for. And it's happening. It's happening to a lot of people, and I'm speaking of the jobs that take a high degree of educational achievement or attainment or something. But it's beyond that. It's for people who are working jobs that you go through a year or two of training, and you're meant to be set for something resembling a lifetime or just a healthy amount of time. It is happening to every person. Now, my point is, given all of this confusion, given all of this incoherence insofar as how people are perceiving reality, even, I think I'll keep it focused on the managerial type positions, because there are narratives that sustain a managerial managerial class, and those narratives are the ones that are breaking down most obviously and most commonly all the time, because the social media cycle, the stuff that the social media algorithms pounce onto or promote, typically revolve around narratives surrounding the management of the country, the purpose of the country, and the role of those who hold power. There's a great competition over this narrative that's very, very emotional. And I've just noticed this. I'm not going to fill in specific details about my own life. It's just, I think it's obvious at this point. And, for those of us who, I've seen people, like I met a person, for example, who worked at the Department of National Intelligence. He got fired when after the previous election, and he seemed quite rattled by what had gone on and what he was to do with his life. And perhaps, in a few more years, maybe he'll be able to return to his job. He said he hadn't been technically fired, but he had been like indefinitely reassigned or something like that. I also I spoke to a guy who's an Uber driver who's telling me that his friend who had studied IT and networks and whatnot lost his job at the company he was working at because they had replaced him with AI. I know people who are going to fancy schools, getting a good education, and they have to be cognizant of the fact that it's rough. It's just a rough competition, and competing along the specific lines of the area of focus that they are committed to. May not be navigating that space, may not be what saves them, because things are so unstable, and you might have to make big changes, or you might have to switch your perspective and your goals in a kind of disorienting way. You have to be especially elastic. Sorry if I'm a little scatterbrained at present, and my sentences might wind and lose their place. I apologize for that. I'm going to hopefully try and maintain structure in how I speak throughout this video, but anyways, I've been thinking about all of that, and it is just true. And I've noticed a lot of resentment against anybody who comes to reach a certain degree of expertise in a particular field, and kind of has a sense of guardedness over what is right, what is wrong, what is reasonable in this field. It just is the case that this is an era where people want to comment on every little thing. Okay, it just is, So my point with this is effectively, I think for young people today, you have to be prepared to kind of go your own way and protect yourself. You cannot be. I don't think it's wise to commit to the security of institutions. I just don't. I think the institutions in the U.S., I'll limit it to the U.S., are under stress, and they might be geared in such a way that is pretty sclerotic and hasn't quite reconsidered the social moment that the U.S. is presently in. We see young people trying to get a foothold in different spaces of importance, and they do face a ton of pushback. As I've mentioned, the people who have held on to their roles in whatever position they occupy are quite protective about it. This is not an era where young talent is always wanted, and certainly not young ambition. It is a discomfort to people who are already we'll just say everybody's dealing with uncertainty at present. You have to be mindful of that. I'll provide some examples on this front, and I'll speak of media, for example. So, there's the Andrew Callahan guy who is trying to create his own media network. Okay, he's getting sued. He's encountering problems. He's getting sued by one dude who he's been most vocal about recently, but he's mentioned that Donald Trump has sued him. He's probably getting sued by multiple parties, to be frank. And his narrative is pretty freewheeling insofar as his political framing. He's I think in this he made a recent video discussing that he was getting sued where he was espousing communistic beliefs. That's not. I don't say this to sort of tease him or put a needle in him or something like that. But it indicates that he's somebody of Generation Z who's got some perspectives that are, I'd say, intimidating and upsetting for a lot of people. So it would be expected that he's getting people upset. And I don't agree, by the way, with his framing on a lot of stuff, honestly. But I do sympathize with this young person who's trying to basically trying to bring where the generation is right now, where these young people are, into the institutional space. However you feel, however people like myself even feel about some of the popular behaviors and beliefs of this generation, this is stuff that has to be addressed. Okay, it's real. This is how I don't care even if young people or even being a little bit prejudiced or speaking to, there was a term used by the guy who was suing Andrew Callahan, calling him a rabble rouser. I think he kind of is a rabble rouser, but the rabble are roused, okay, and that's not something you can kind of like just dismiss and throw a lawsuit at or something and think that it's going to go away. It's a real sentiment. Same thing is happening in New York City. Same thing is happening even, I would say, among the Fishback campaign in Florida. Another example of this media shift, this is people who are, mostly, this is a part of the counter intra-elite warfare, but Barry Weiss's news network, we can speak about, I'm not even going to speak about like the rightness or wrongness of what's going on there, but she does represent, not as young as Gen Z specifically, but a certain kind of like millennial disposition that's been influenced heavily by the tech right and things like that, and she's obviously rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, who are used to the norms of like the news world that have been standing for the last several decades, and there's all kinds of bad blood that's being sown in that space as an example. It just there are people trying to channel new forces, and they're trying to bring them into these spaces, and it's just nasty. It's not like this era where you can just make yourself the best at some particular field, and then you'll immediately, like, people will find you and find some use for you or know what to do with you. Things today are very political, and it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of opportunity to go around, and it is competitive, and it is a little vicious, and it takes being kind of innovative, and it also takes on drawing upon the resources that are more at hand. It's not a very, in my view, I'm in disbelief that it's a wise idea to simply curry favor with those who already have power, because it seems as though those people are they're facing a huge challenge. They are powerful people in this country are pretty hated, by the fact that they have power at all. If you're, it just seems like a good idea, even if that upset can sometimes be, it can lead to some stupid ideas. It can sometimes it's charged by people who are who haven't thought about the issues too deeply or haven't looked at what the other side is saying. It just doesn't matter. And if it is unfair in some regard, no matter where you stand, if you're subjected to opinions that are unfair, you have to be on the good side of this outrage that's implicit, innate in the hearts of so many people today. Implicit innate maybe isn't the best, these are maybe not the best terms for describing something that is probably contingent upon a particular era that we're in. But you get what I mean. It's in the hearts of so many people. So you don't want to be on the side of, the bad side of outrage, the bad side of stupidity, the bad side of paranoia. You just don't. Or you will be pretty thoroughly thrashed, and no one will help you. Few people will. And many people like to dogpile today. And, I don't have much more to say about it. I'm just thinking about it. I'm almost insecure to speak on where my mind goes in this circumstance, but I've just been thinking about, man, you know what I like that isn't very controversial, because sometimes I have strong political opinions. I have strong opinions about just the nature of the society we live in at present, but I feel like something about myself that isn't so controversial is my liking of art. I've been thinking, like, should I just write plays or something? Should I just try and write plays and try and just be like, I see all this crazy shit happening in the world, and I'll be like, wow, you guys, that's pretty wild, that's pretty crazy, but that's not what that's not what I'm about. I just write plays. I just write books. I just do that. I just try to entertain. And I'm really into, look at these weird books that I've read, and I'm not really going to, initiate you into all of my views on everything, but you can just appreciate what I have shown you. That's what I mean. Like, that's what I'm thinking about. Get on the good side of stupidity, and it's not, that's a nasty way to phrase it, but it's just kind of true, and it's true for everybody. There's probably people who I'm pissed off at who I don't really understand the nuances of their lives or why they make the decisions that they make, and they would regard if they were exposed to it, some of my animosity as a part of ignorance, as a part of stupidity. So this is an era where so many people want to lash out and kill each other, unfortunately, figuratively and even literally, and you have to be on the good side of that dynamic. You just have to in this era. It's just this is not a well-oiled machine that we live in. And I've been thinking, even, I've got a friend who's studying in Europe right now, and I've been thinking about, Europe is a more elitist society. They kind of do, like, they seem to lean more on their institutions and credentialism and things like that. And that's not in principle a bad thing, but it's not in principle a great thing either. But it's like, it's not working out for Europe, is it? It's not working out in the UK. It's not working out in the continent. So they're going to have to deal with this. In the U.S., we at least have more of a precedent for outmaneuvering elite institutions when they misfire, when they're dysfunctional. But it's like we're back on the frontier. Okay, this is a young country. Our traditions, our institutions are not as old as they are elsewhere, and we do have to be. There's more of a precedent, at least, for establishing your own institutions and your own thing, whatever it is. So I don't know what that looks like for me. I've just been thinking about this because I'm like, I don't know. You look for work. You look for, who do you hitch your wagon to? And I look at, I'm not going to be specific here, but I look at some of the stuff that's out there, and I'm like, geez, some of the institutions and the places where an individual can work seem like misgeared. They seem like they're not oriented towards long-term success, and they seem oriented towards a ton of frustration that people will, try to endure through injections of money, and it's, well, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if this video was even good. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you have an opinion on it, leave a comment, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you relate to this, maybe you don't, but maybe you'll see me, reading a play to you that I wrote, reading it to you from my own lips. And I'll have to act out all the people, because I don't know anybody who will act out a play if I write it or put it into production. This is stupid because I haven't even written the fucking thing. I just was thinking about it. Now I'm like mouthing bullshit. All right, have fun, everybody. Have fun.